I've spent a lot of time trying to apply the principles learned in Tsukikage to being as good of a student as I can be. Just as the pursuit of a perfect form in a kata is ongoing, a similar pursuit can be applied to all other endeavors. Beginning with the first class I attended with Tsukikage Ryu, I kept asking myself, how can I give back? I'm sure this question occurs to many students across the world. It is much easier to walk into a dojo that has a class tuition than one that does not. No matter the price of classes, students soon realize how much of a treasure their sensei's time and experience is. I am and have been determined to be as good of a student as possible and to continue to ask that previous question. I revised the answers to my question early in my training when Bill Sensei informed me some karate is better than no karate, after finding out I would miss class sometimes because I felt it was rude to walk into class late. As a student, I can give back by being attentive and ready to help wherever possible, by practicing with full attention and spirit, and by placing trust in those teaching class. Attentiveness to me means applying the Tsukikage mindset to the needs of class. The need for Joe, chairs for guests, or mats for rolling seldom can be predicted. Responding to any need and having these things ready quickly helps practice the mindset we strive for in combat. Inferring the intentions of those around us is both useful in combat and makes one a good host to guests. The atmosphere of the dojo is a combination of the physical space, the sensei leading the class, and the students practicing. I feel that contributing one's full spirit to the class greatly improves this atmosphere. Trying to visualize an opponent, a strong ki-eye, pushing oneself in the areas that need work, and giving fellow students full focus and intention in partner drills is some of the ways I try to put my spirit into practice. I always find it easier to do this when those around me are just as focused. Another critical element to being a good student is to place trust in the art and lessons being taught. Most questions that come to mind during practice are answered in later lessons if one is patient. Those few that aren't answered can lead to interesting lessons if asked in the right manner and at the right time, rather than challenging the teacher. This exercise of putting aside assumptions and fully assessing the situation can keep one out of fights. This lesson and focus learned in Budo are transferable to other aspects of our life, such as being teachers, students, drivers, and any other activity one engages in. We learn from our failings, and we learn when we fall short of our envisioned ideal. Striving for one's own improvement not only betters oneself, but improves the atmosphere for all with whom we interact.
I want to ask you what you meant about one thing in there.
Certainly.
Most questions that come to mind during practice are answered in later lessons if one is patient. Those few that aren't answered can lead to interesting lessons if asked in the right manner and at the right time, rather than challenging the teacher. This exercise of putting aside assumptions and fully assessing the situation can keep one out of fights. Just expound on that for me. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So the final part or the whole concept. So I run into this a little bit more in sword class, but I've especially seen where a student ends up almost butting heads with the instructor going, no, that's not right. This is the way it works. This is the way it works. And it brings class to a halt where, and then it becomes a fight with the instructor going to prove that this works. I also saw it in the previous dojo that I very first studied at. Someone goes, oh, your technique can't work, and then it ends up having to be almost teacher versus student in that situation.
So you say those few that aren't answered can lead to interesting lessons if asked in the right manner?
Let's say, like a bunkai to something's being shown, or you're just learning the kata, and you go, well, that's not how you hit somebody with a jo, or that's not how you hit somebody with a sword, and you present it as challenging the teacher, saying, that's not how you do it, that won't work. But if you say, oh, what are we doing at this point? Or you hit a point where the lesson is not in progress as far as the concept as a whole is being interrupted, and you ask your question when there's a moment to ask a question.
Okay. And putting aside assumptions can keep you out of fights. What do you mean by that?
If you walk into a situation and like I ended up seeing this when I was out taking care of property. There was a guy with a club, and there was another guy that were pretty much engaged. And I immediately walked towards the two, but I opened my phone and I told them I'm calling the police. This is in the parking lot of Ocean Beach. It stepped back, but my initial assumption was there's a guy with a club beating the crap out of somebody. Well, the guy with the club would have picked that up after he interrupted the guy doing something that he shouldn't have, and the guy jumped on him. So if I had looked at that situation on the surface, I would have said, this guy's the aggressor, this guy needs to be protected. You know, this guy's got a weapon and is about to waylay this guy. But
that wasn't the case.
It wasn't the case.
Okay. All right.
Can you tell us our lineage, please?
So
heroes.
we start with Bodhidharma, who came from India. We decided to go to China to go help teach the Shaolin monks. We then travel forward in time a little bit. Who was emissary in Okinawa, trade emissary, and Kusanku. Then we have Sakurawa, who challenged Kusanku, and the legend is we get Kankudai from that. Then we have Matsumura, Azuto Mitosu, Funakoshi, Yamjiro, Georgia, and there's